Hey there, my name is Rebecca. I'm here with the Connext Exchange, welcoming Angela Silva Mendes, who recently led the conversation, Upgrade Your Inner Roadmap. And Angela is a life coach with Upanji Life Coaching. And we were so blessed to have her for this beautiful conversation and thankful that you're joining me again today, Angela. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rebecca, for not only having me, but facilitating this co-creation of new ideas, which Connext is, and I'm loving it. So thank you.
Yes, you really have jumped in as part of the community even prior to leading your conversation. And we just appreciate the value that you bring. And specifically in this conversation, it gave us the opportunity to think about these stories or beliefs in our heads, things that have been roadmaps or belief systems that may be unconscious to us that we may not even be aware of. And there was a beautiful invitation to pause and think about things. So, how did this topic or the idea of an inner roadmap come to you? Where does that importance come from?
Well, I think our lives, we tend to be raised to turn to the outside. In education, we turn to information. In professional careers, we turn to strategies and more information. And we forget the most important part, which is the only constant in all of this school, family, neighborhoods, communities is ourselves. And I think it's the invitation to actually not exclude the most important part and recognizing that the most important part in all of this that I call a dance, not a journey, but the most important part is not even fully represented because most of what we've learned took over. Our beliefs are inherited. They are unconscious because until we question them, and sometimes we do around teenage years, young adulthood, we question if whatever we receive from our parents, our community, our background represents us, and we adopt other behaviors and other habits. But unless something actually triggers us or forces us, we don't go there. But they're still here. And they still function as most of the time an obstacle when not used adequately. And as we talked during the conversation, anything can be an asset and it can be an obstacle at the same time. It just depends on how my dance is showing up. So depending on if I need my desk for my computer or if I need to go to my window, then it's an asset and an obstacle. And it's easy in the physical world to recognize that and differentiate that we've learned that with our senses, our eyesight, with our hearing, we can do that. And what about our inner roadmap, our inner ability to discern? There's no strategy that it's fully implemented to say, here's how you go to your most essential, most natural to you, most unique part of your being, which is what I say it's my self-print. My self-print is not my community or my language, my family, my education, my trainings. That's all part, it's all here, it's all useful and beneficial, and I want to use it accordingly. I don't want to leave it behind, but I don't want to leave myself behind as well. And in order for me to do that, life has dragged me there. Not that I went there willingly. Oh, I want to reflect on what I've learned that doesn't reflect me, or it doesn't represent who I want to be. And I kicked and screamed. But it is through that pause, that being here, that slowing down, and taking the information from the outside. Of course, it's absolutely fundamental. We exist as a body, we need to use the material world, but we are not just a body. We have thoughts and emotions. They're not tangible. They're not something that I can fix. My rage is like this, my anger is like this, my joy is like this. It changes, it varies, it really takes an hold on us. And unless we actually have that practice of pausing, it doesn't flow, it becomes rigid, it becomes unidimensional. I'm just this. And I miss out on everything else that I'm also. And sometimes even rage can be an asset if I use that energy accordingly in a way that represents my vitality, my right of existing, then it is an asset. Of course, if rage takes over and then I act in a way that doesn't represent me, then it's an obstacle. Then it really prevents me. It prevents my dance.
Yeah, that was a beautiful part of the conversation to me, was this invitation and opportunity to say both things can be true. I think we live in a culture that really likes to label things and likes to make things black and white. And your example of the desk was so obvious. And yeah, it does take a little more work to apply it to our internal thoughts, our identities, to recognize that if I'm stubborn, that can work out in my benefit sometimes, and maybe determined and persistent, and other times I may be unmoving and that may not work out for me. And both things can be true, and that is our humanity, and that's okay. It was a beautiful invitation.
Thank you. I think more and more we were trained to gather information, but nowadays information is readily available at the tip of our fingers, at actually voice operated, right? We can invite information to join us at any moment. And what does that do? It really doesn't consider us. And what's needed is that discernment, that ability to actually differentiate what is what, when. Because if I label this is good, this is bad, I'm actually ignoring everything else. And I'm ignoring myself. I might need different things at different times for different reasons. And that's the invitation of my work. That was the invitation of the talk, to really take in and consider where and how do I need an upgrade, because life is change, constant change. And I can either fight it and resist the movement, or I can take the movement as information and notice how can I move accordingly. And we talked about the dance, and it's exactly that. We need to listen to the music, and we need to listen to our own abilities, and then the dance flows.
And there are so many messages in personal growth, and a lot of them have a core that is true from different approaches. And you introduced the idea of a dance, and maybe there's a DJ, maybe you are your own DJ, and the opportunity to adjust to the music. And that visual just created such a beautiful piece. I think sometimes we talk about being on a journey and a road being closed. And I think about making New Year's resolutions. And again, we get in this all or nothing, like either I succeed or I fail, instead of this flow. How did that comparison to a dance come to you? Where did that come from?
Well, for the longest time, I thought life was a journey, that I had to start from A to B, and there must have been a destination. And I think culturally, we are given a destination. You're supposed to go to school and graduate. You're supposed to get a job, and you're supposed to get married, have family, whatever. I was raised to believe that that was my path. Again, it's as if it's predetermined that as a woman, I have to have children. If I don't have children, from where I come from, African background, if I don't have children, there's something definitely wrong with me, and my own survival is at risk, because then I'll be abandoned for being good for nothing. And when, as an adult woman, I realized that, yeah, I love children, but I cannot have children. Not that I can't physically, I can't put this thought that I will have a being dependent on me for the rest of my life, or at least until they depend on themselves. And that in itself allowed me to start reflecting on what I had inherited, never questioned, always thought that's what I was supposed to do. What else? I'm a woman. There's nothing else for me, until I actually gave myself permission to choose what was for me and for what purpose. And I realized that by the time I decided, there was no need, there was nobody asking for maternity, there was no sense of I need this to whatever reason I could want to have children. And that got me thinking about what else? What else did I inherit that really doesn't reflect who I am, what I want from life, and why am I here in this planet? And I think that was the first big one. But of course, as I say, life gives us lots of invitations to dance, different types of music, and my life has been like that. I left the country at war. My father sent us to his country, Portugal, to for temporary purposes, but the war in Angola lasted for nearly 40 years, over 30 years. So my father died in the meantime. All of these were life's invitations for me to dance. I didn't know that. At the time I was too young, but looking back, and again, they were tragic events, absolutely, that I wouldn't ask for them. I would not want them in my life. But once I look at them, I always see the benefit that it gave me from being uprooted, for not having that sense of roots and connections because I don't belong, right? I don't live in the country I was born. I wasn't raised in the country that I was born. And all of this allowed me, again, with kicking and screaming as I rejected the change, to reflect that what these inherited beliefs were doing was actually preventing me from flowing and using whatever was there as benefits or as obstacles. And many, many, many were obstacles more than assets. There's a lot of assets and amazing things that I treasure, but with discernment, and that takes practice. It there's no guiding book can give me that.
You have such beautiful language around growth and just lived experience, and even the word upgrade. You shared that in the conversation, that we upgrade our computers regularly, we upgrade our phones, our apps on our phones. So again, it's like regular maintenance, turn it inward. So if someone is watching us today and maybe hearing some of these thoughts for the first time, what may be a good first step to start the process of upgrading their inner roadmap?
So I would say my book. It came out recently, and it is called Getting There by Being Here, Life's Invitations to Dance, which is a combination and a summary of everything that I share. It is my principles, my practices, and that is the main invitation as a starting point. Of course, you can reach out. I'm on Instagram and Facebook. I don't use that much. I tend to forget. But I will, if you start with the book, I will start a book club discussing the chapters. And I have, in September, I'm launching the practices, just the practices, because they're not strategies that you implement, but they're invitations for us to actually see how can we apply them in our lives, and how can we stop and recognize and allow flow to happen.
Wonderful. Yes, Angela has just published this new book, which is fantastic and so exciting. And one more to add to my giant reading list. Thank you so much, Angela, for sharing your wisdom and experiences with us. And is there anything else you'd like to add before we go?
No, just this invitation to listen.
Thank you again. And thank you all for watching. Give yourself a moment to pause today and listen to that inner dialogue and check in on your roadmap. And perhaps you will find that there's a map or a street that will lead you to the Connext Exchange for a future conversation. We meet every Thursday live online at 11:30. So please feel welcome to join us and have a fantastic day.